This episode of the news from the Permaculture Podcast is brought to you by listeners like you. After more than 600 episodes in its 13-year history, the Permaculture Podcast remains a predominantly listener-supported, listener-sustained broadcast. You can support the show today by making a one-time donation at paypal.me/permaculturepodcast or by using Venmo at permaculturepodcast. You can also become a sustaining patron by joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/permaculturepodcast. As we get started, I hope everyone impacted by the recent heat waves are finding some relief. The heat dome finally moved off of the mid-Atlantic here in the US, so after a number of consecutive days where the real field temperature was over 100 degrees, I'm thankful to say that I'm recording with all the windows open and my infant son within arm's length, as we both enjoy a cool breeze. In our news today, we have a longtime friend of the pod appearing in a New York Times article, as well as some information about rewilding in Britain. This is also where I include a permaculture job announcement for anyone currently working in sales looking for a side gig or to begin transitioning to a more sustainable, permaculture-oriented line of work. Michael Judd, frequent guest of the show, was recently featured in an article by Margaret Roach titled, "Replacing Your Lawn. Instead of Meadows, Consider a Food Forest," with the subtitle, "Or just start by planting a few pawpaw or persimmon trees. Chances are you'll want more." In that article, Michael shares his motivations and interests in native plants as an adaptation to climate change, as well as ideas for starting a food forest or native plant garden. Throughout are copious pictures of the gorgeous 25-acre homestead where he lives, Long Creek, near Frederick, Maryland. If you've wanted to rouse the interest of your friends and family for adopting permaculture, this is a great article to send them so they can see and understand the beauty and importance of this work and why they might want to finally come across the fence and get involved. As with all news episodes, you'll find links to this article and the rest of the pieces mentioned in the show notes for easy reference. And as Michael has contributed to the show multiple times over the years, that includes links to our earlier conversations on starting out and getting involved in permaculture, natural burial, and his keynote address for the 2016 Mid-Atlantic Permaculture Convergence, and several more, because there's just so much from Michael in the archives, but all of which still bear wisdom for our work today. In the world of rewilding, Prince William of the British royal family is working to expand the Duchy of Cornwall's temperate rainforest. The aim of this plan is to double the size of Wistman's Wood, a 7.4-acre remnant of the ancient woodland on Dartmoor, and they plan to do so by 2040. Though it sounds like that's quite a bit of time to expand 7.4 acres, the time that this will take comes from the techniques involved in this process, which includes reducing cattle grazing on the land and limiting foot traffic by visitors so the landscape can regenerate naturally, and by collecting seeds harvested from trees within the existing woods to plant out new trees. Described as a haunting and magical place, seeing the pictures in the article, I would absolutely agree. Just the images remind me of the most preternatural feeling environments I've personally encountered in the mist-filled hollers and fog-covered mountaintops of Appalachia. For anybody listening, I would highly recommend, if you are near the Duchy of Cornwall and can get involved and volunteer, you certainly should. For anybody else elsewhere in the world, please consider going and finding similar rewilding projects in your community and seeing what you can do to help grow and expand those. Before I shift to the news of the podcast, that job announcement I mentioned. The Permaculture Podcast and Urban Farm Podcast are collaborating together as we look for someone to sell airtime on our respective podcasts. Though only a part-time income to start, once the right candidate builds their book of business, that could easily become a full-time job with the reach of both of our shows. We offer a flat 30% commission on both first-time sales as well as renewals and residuals. If you'd like to learn more and apply, send a copy of your resume and any questions you may have to me at show@thepermaculturepodcast.com. I'll review those with Greg as those come in and reach out to candidates of interest. From behind the scenes, Anna, I saw your note on Spotify. Don't worry, I will be releasing longer episodes mixed in with this new shorter format. Once I've settled into getting regular releases out again, after an extended health concern that took up most of 2022, regretfully, and then welcoming my new son into the world at the beginning of 2023, and most recently supporting my wife through a return from maternity leave, which included her applying for a new position in her company, which came with a promotion. She was the candidate selected for that and just started that new job today as I record this, Monday, the 31st of July. It's been a busy, active time, but life is calming down again, and there will be a lot of material from the show in different forms and formats in the future. In addition to handling the impacts of the heat dome, I also spent this weekend recovering from a serious storm that saw winds of more than 80 miles per hour sweep through Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia, which resulted in an extended power outage at our home. Thankfully, other than not being able to work on the podcast as I'd planned to, Saturday and Sunday, the resiliency plans my family and I had put in place last year saw us able to ride out, even with the heat, the power outage, and everything. I'm here today in a great place, working on lots of material, and feeling pretty good, all things considered. To draw this episode of the news to a close, if you'd like to share any news from your world with me, or for me to share what my family and I do to increase our resiliency in our home in a future episode of the podcast, get in touch. You can email me directly, show@thepermaculturepodcast.com, or head over to thepermaculturepodcast.com, click on Contact, and send me a direct message there. Until we meet again, spend each day increasing your preparations for a changing world while taking care of Earth, yourself, and each other.